Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, multi-billion-dollar puzzle that's currently keeping modern military planners up at night. We're going to unpack an independent assessment by the Army Science Board, all about the next-generation armor strategy. Specifically, we're looking at the master plan to replace the legendary M1 Abrams tank with something, anything, capable of actually surviving the brutal, hyper-networked battlefield of 2040. It's a fascinating challenge, so let's jump right in.
To figure out where we're going, we really have to appreciate where we are right now. And since its development way back in the 1970s, the M1 Abrams has been the absolute gold standard of direct-fire ground combat vehicles.
For literal decades, the Abrams has been the undisputed king of the battlefield. It earned that title by perfecting what we call the core tank capabilities. We're talking about an incredible, sweet spot balance of mobility, firepower, and protection. Between its composite armor, that stabilized 120mm cannon, and a massive turbine engine, it literally shaped decades of military doctrine. It allowed forces to execute combined arms maneuver and totally dominate close combat.
But here is the core mystery we're unpacking today. If the M1 is so universally respected, and it's been continuously upgraded for 40 years, why is it suddenly in trouble? Why is the Army Science Board concluding that the M1 will soon be unable to maneuver on the future battlefield without suffering unacceptable losses?
Well, to answer that, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the future battlefield threat. Second, the limits of the Abrams. Third, defining fifth-generation armor. And fourth, engineering the next generation.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the future battlefield threat, focusing on the precision fires battlefield.
The contrast here is honestly pretty stark. On one side, we see modernized legacy platforms like the Russian T-72 and T-90. Now, the US has easily maintained overmatch against these for years. But then, look at the other side, the T-14 Armata. This is a true fourth-generation tank. It features an unmanned remote turret, an armored capsule specifically for the crew, and integrated active protection systems. It represents a major leap in adversary armor that was designed specifically to cancel out US numerical and technological advantages.
But hey, it isn't just about enemy tanks. The crucial point to understand is that the 2040 battlefield is going to be a dense web of precision fires. The Abrams is facing advanced anti-tank guided missiles, things like the Cornet and Chrysanthema, which have unbelievable range and penetration. Then you've got sensor-fused top-attack artillery targeting the roof of the tank, which is exactly where the armor is the thinnest. Add in radio-electronic combat and cyber attacks designed to completely jam communications and GPS, plus literal swarms of UAVs providing 24/7 surveillance. Essentially, the M1's traditional advantages are being neutralized before the tank even makes it to the close combat zone.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the limits of the Abrams, or the anatomy of a breakdown.
Just take a look at this terrain analysis from the Engineer Research and Development Center. It shows cross-country mobility in Northern Europe. Green means unrestricted, red means severely restricted. Look at that massive difference between dry and wet conditions. The Abrams, especially with its latest heavy upgrade packages, is pushing a staggering 80 tons. To put that into perspective, the ground pressure is simply too high, severely restricting its movement during wet seasons and making the tank literally too heavy for a lot of standard bridges and rail cars.
Now you might be wondering, well, why not just add better armor or bolt on some active protection systems to stop the new missiles? Well, here's the catch. The Abrams has basically reached the end of its physical growth potential. Upgrades add weight, and weight degrades mobility. If you stuff more armor and computers into the M1 to survive the threats we just talked about, it basically becomes a bunker. It becomes entirely immobile. You just can't keep upgrading a 1970s chassis indefinitely.
So, we need a massive leap forward. Let's look at Section 3, defining fifth-generation armor, the generational leap. I love this slide because this evolution pyramid really charts the path forward. At the base, you see Generation 3, which is the Abrams, relying heavily on traditional mass, armor, and firepower. Above that is Generation 4, represented by that Russian T-14 we saw earlier. But notice the US strategy here. Actually, scratch the idea of just building our own Gen 4 tank to match them. The goal is to leapfrog directly over that into a revolutionary Generation 5 paradigm.
So what exactly is a fifth-generation combat vehicle, or 5-Gen CV? Well, it's a radically new concept. In the past, you built a tough steel box and shoved computers into it. For Generation 5, the vehicle is designed from the ground up around its internal computer network. It honestly might not even look like a traditional tank. Think of it more as a lighter, smarter hub that leverages artificial intelligence to manage a flood of incoming sensor data. That would allow a much smaller crew, maybe just 2 or 3 people, to fight effectively in complex multi-domain operations.
To actually survive out there in 2040, this vehicle relies on 4 vital technologies. First up is AI computing, which is absolutely crucial to instantly categorize threats and calculate firing solutions faster than a human ever could. Second is signature masking, meaning actively reducing the vehicle's thermal, acoustic, and electromagnetic footprint so it can essentially hide from adversary sensors. Third is network resilience, so it can fight through heavy electronic jamming. And fourth is the ability to control robotic wingmen. Imagine deploying unmanned systems over the horizon to scout or attack while the human crew stays totally concealed.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 4, Engineering the Next Generation, Project Management and Reality.
Let's be honest for a second. Historically, the military has had a bit of a bad habit of chasing unproven sci-fi breakthroughs and trying to bolt on every new bell and whistle they can think of. That's exactly what led to multi-billion-dollar acquisition disasters like the canceled Future Combat Systems program. To avoid repeating history, the Army Science Board insists on returning to the original, highly successful M1 development model from the 70s. The mandate is incredibly strict. Use only proven technologies. Make sure subsystems are fully mature before you try to integrate them. Build the best system a stressed-out soldier can actually learn and use under fire, not just a theoretical wonder weapon.
A really great example of this disciplined engineering approach is found in the vehicle's physical protection. We aren't just relying on fancy software here. Engineers have to leverage modern metallurgy, specifically advanced armor steels. By carefully evolving the chemical compositions and closely monitoring the carbon equivalents, all while adhering to strict historical military standard or MIL-DTL specifications, they can create new alloys that maximize ballistic protection while aggressively shedding weight. It's all about optimizing the physical materials to work hand in hand with those digital defenses.
To actually bring this all together without breaking the bank, the board proposed a meticulously structured 7-year pre-acquisition program. They've broken the development down into 9 specific testbeds, ranging from hybrid electric mobility and autoloaders, all the way to AI computing and robotics. By allocating $2.27 billion to mature these components and prototypes first, the Army grounds all these crazy futuristic concepts into a very concrete, realistic timeline, cutting down the risk of failure in a huge way.
Which brings us to the ultimate million-dollar question we have to ask ourselves. Can we successfully engineer a 5th-generation vehicle that perfectly balances weight, AI, and raw firepower? Or is the era of the manned, heavily armored vehicle destined to be buried by the new era of relentless AI-driven precision fires? It is a massively high-stakes technological race, and it is absolutely going to define the future of global security. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the future.